doing anything in there. Writing songs, recording. It's only his mom with him, so we don't know. Suddenly, I understood. They were talking about Paul Frazier. 4 years ago, Paul had fronted a high school band called The Seizures. The story goes that on the band's first gig at Mullins, a restaurant downtown, people half a dozen blocks away had called the cops about the noise. Although the band had been together only a year, kids still talked about their shows. If you were one of the few lucky enough to have seen them play, you held a certain authority. At school this past year, I had overheard many arguments between juniors and seniors claiming to have gone to one of their shows, and the doubters and detractors who hadn't. Sometimes, walking through town, I would see R.I.P. Seizures spray-painted in the alleyways between vacant buildings. I hadn't heard of the Seizures until this year, my first year of high school. By the time I'd been enlightened to the noise, the band was long defunct. Paul Frazier had left for college in New York City, and all that was left of the band were the stories and the memories, and a 6-song EP, still available for download on their MySpace page. But earlier in May, the word was that Paul had returned. He'd moved back into his mother's house and had hardly been seen or heard from since. He stayed in his room, holed away from the rest of the town, like a monk or a sleeping vampire. "I think it's over, man." Nola ran her hands through her short dark hair. "He's never going to play again." Ian shook his head. "I don't know." I learned quickly that this was the group's favorite topic of debate, Paul Frazier. Nola and Joey were skeptics, but Ian still clung to a slim but dogged hope. Out of all of us, Ian was his biggest fan. Although he was in our grade, Ian was a year older, and the only one of us who could drive. He was the only one of us who had seen Paul's band, sneaking out with his older brother to one of the Seizures shows when he was only 12, or so he claimed. During these arguments, Bethany and I stayed silent. We were the newcomers. I couldn't speak for Bethany, but in this group's presence, I evaluated every word before I said it, mentally proofing future sentences in my head. I was in this car because of Bethany, my best friend since first grade. Wherever she went, I went too. I hardly knew these other kids. But if clever, pretty Bethany wanted to hang out with them, then I was coming along, like a dog dragged on a leash. Just a dumb, anxious dog with nothing clear to contribute. Just Laura. Sort of cute, but not pretty, with a cluster of freckles splattered across my nose and thick, unruly red hair. I was good at making myself invisible. In the Walmart parking lot, Ian pulled into a space as far away from the entrance as possible, although there were hundreds of free spaces closer. We climbed out of his old Saturn. It was one of the first warm nights of the year, and it felt strange to be out this late with bare arms, not chilled by the breeze. While everyone else headed for the entrance, I grabbed Bethany's arm and held her back. She raised her eyebrows, impatient. I tried not to show that this look hurt. "Hey," I said. "Do you know what bath salts are supposed to do to you? I just looked it up." Bethany looked at my phone in disdain, as if phones were now beneath her. "You know, just because it's online doesn't make it true, Laura." "It doesn't make it false either," I said. She glanced at Ian and Nola and Joey, who had stopped a few yards ahead and were looking back at us, waiting. "Apparently they make you do weird stuff," I said. "Really weird stuff." For a second, I could see her almost caving to me. Then she shook her head. "Don't be so lame, Laura. I want to actually do things this summer." She turned and headed toward the store, and I had no choice but to follow. Inside Walmart, we drifted down the aisles, past mad, grinning animal faces on the fronts of cereal boxes, past women's underwear and kitty t-shirts graced with the latest Disney starlet, everything lit in a cold, fluorescent glow. This was where I went with my mom and little brother for laundry detergent or school supplies. But tonight, it didn't feel familiar. Tonight, we were on the verge of something strange and dangerous. It turned people into zombies, one article on my phone had said. Blood-hungry zombies. Ian led us to the health and beauty section, and after a minute of scanning the aisle, pointed to a small...